Southern Gothic is a podcast that explores the history behind some of the American South's darkest days, greatest mysteries, and most chilling ghost stories. The exquisite Cavalier Hotel stands tall on a hill overlooking the Atlantic Ocean and the sandy shores of Virginia Beach. With its Georgian Revival architecture, the hotel is an enduring symbol of the community's roots as an elite tourist destination, epitomizing the elegance and luxury that defined the area's rise to prominence in the early 20th century. Cavalier's stately red brick façade is accented by pristine white trim and large symmetrical windows, exuding an air of refined sophistication, and its classic design, marked by gabled roofs and dormer windows, is complemented by a grand entrance framed by a porte-cochere. To top it off, the lushly landscaped grounds, manicured gardens, and expensive lawns provide a serene backdrop that enhances the hotel's grandeur. And look, if you're driving down Atlantic Avenue, you'll know it when you see it, because on the tiered hill that the building sits on top of, the garden hedges and flowers have been planted in such a way as to boldly spell out the hotel's name. This building truly looks like an icon from another time, and y'all, that's because it is. For almost a century, the Cavalier Hotel has welcomed guests to Virginia Beach. Her history and construction are deeply intertwined with the rise of this community's reputation as a premier tourist destination, and as such, the historic building has been given the fitting nickname of the Grand Dame. Today, over 14 million people visit Virginia Beach each and every year, but the area's draw as a vacation spot began all the way back in the late 19th century with the arrival of the Norfolk and Virginia Beach Railroad in 1883. Driven by its natural beauty and location at the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay, this new accessibility made it an ideal spot for wealthy travelers to escape nearby cities for the promise of pristine beaches and the warm ocean breeze. Soon enough, luxury hotels catering to elite clientele, like the original Princess Anne Hotel, were built along the shoreline in areas that were once nothing but farmland. But it was the Cavalier that truly solidified Virginia Beach as a fashionable resort town, attracting celebrities, politicians, and wealthy families from all over the country. Stars like Judy Garland, Betty Davis, Doris Day, and Frank Sinatra all checked in for a stay at some point or another, as well as 7 presidents of the United States. The Grand Dame of the Shore is without a doubt a historic property. Now, over the years, Virginia Beach has evolved dramatically from these roots as an isolated getaway for the elite, with modern resorts and condominiums of all sizes being built for families in all price ranges, but yet the majestic Cavalier still operates at the north end of the oceanfront resort district, its architecture standing in stark contrast to the modernity surrounding it, a striking reminder of another time. Of course, with a past as colorful as that of the Cavalier, it's no wonder why many of the folks who visited and worked there believe that this iconic hotel is haunted, that the apparitions of previous guests still wander the halls and disembodied sounds echo through the air. Yet the most infamous of all of these hauntings is believed to be that of the founder of the Coors brewing empire, a man whose untimely death here at the Cavalier is still shrouded in mystery to this very day. My name is Brandon Schexnayder, and you are listening to Southern Gothic. Construction of the Cavalier Hotel began in 1926, lasted for 13 months, and cost $1.5 million. As a result, when the hotel opened its doors on April 4, 1927, there was no doubt that this lavish, world-class resort embodied the economic and cultural highs of the now notorious Roaring Twenties.
As a band burst into the stirring strains of the Star-Spangled Banner, Old Glory was unfurled above the main entrance of the Cavalier at Virginia Beach yesterday afternoon at 3 o'clock, giving the formal touch to the opening of the $2 million structure. The flag raising was attended with daylight fireworks. Hundreds of bombs shot 1,000 or more feet in the air and exploded to release life-size figures of Cavaliers riding on horseback.
Dubbed by the local Virginia Pilot newspaper as a, quote, rare gem of beauty, the Cavalier Hotel stands 8 stories tall and is composed of 500,000 bricks, making it the largest brick building in the state of Virginia at the time when it was built. And while today modern hotels might tower over this historic resort, when the doors were opened to the public, it was seen as a place where the, quote, spirit of modern Virginia and colonial ideals of hospitality blend. After all, the design of both the building and grounds was directly inspired by other iconic Virginia landmarks like Thomas Jefferson's Monticello and the lawn at the University of Virginia.
When one enters the building, one is wrapped in the colonial spirit that is carried out in all designs and furnishings. In the lobby and lounge, which first greet the visitors, warm old native Virginia pine is the predominant note in this scheme of things. Its use was decided on after the architects had made a study of old Virginia homes and public buildings. The main ballroom downstairs is a copy of an old Virginia ballroom, with hangings of silk damask of orange and blue-green stripes, carrying center embroidered panels of blue-green velvet with a colorful basket of flowers in each.
The new hotel was, and once again is, nothing short of grand. Even the 200 state-of-the-art guest rooms had all of the finest amenities of the time, from impressive furniture and finishes to private bathrooms that not only featured a saltwater bathtub, but also a sink with an ice water faucet. Extravagant perks at a time when most hotel rooms didn't even have private baths to begin with. The expansive beachfront resort also boasted an indoor pool with a diving board, a 290-acre golf course, horse stables, a hair salon, a doctor's office, and a handful of boutique luxury shops right there off the fancy hotel lobby, so that the guests never had to leave once they checked in. There was even a radio station that broadcast from the Cavalier, as well as a stock brokerage office, a seemingly surprising amenity on the surface, but clearly an obvious necessity for the type of guests who were checking in. I mean, look, this was a hotel that catered directly to the world's elite, and y'all, it was so successful in attracting those people that One of the Cavalier's 9 dining rooms had to be designated to serve the chauffeurs and staff of the guests themselves. Like I said, this was the Roaring '20s, a time characterized by prosperity, extravagance, and a cultural atmosphere of carefree optimism. And y'all, I bet when you think about the Roaring '20s, it's probably flappers and big band jazz that you picture. Yet, while that particular era might be long gone, today, some of the people who visit the Cavalier report that it is still very much alive and well within those walls. And no, I don't just mean its memory. According to hotel lore, folks believe that you can still hear echoes of the Jazz Age dancing through the air of the opulent ballroom, which was once home to the famous Ben Burney Orchestra. It is said that every so often, guests who find their way into the breathtaking space are met with the sounds of an ethereal piano playing in the distance, melodies that seem to come from nowhere, as the people who've claimed to hear it say the ballroom's piano was entirely unoccupied. The indoor pool is home to another of the hotel's most notorious spirits, the apparition of a little girl wandering through as if she's looking for something. According to legend, the girl was once a guest at the Cavalier on vacation with her family, and apparently she brought her family pet with her, a cat. Unfortunately, the feline somehow escaped from their guest room and found its way downstairs to the pool, where it either fell or jumped in. Knowing cats, though, my money is on fell. Well, when the girl realized her cat was missing, she began wandering the halls of the hotel, and eventually, when she discovered what had happened, she fearlessly jumped into the pool to save it. But the poor child was not successful, and she drowned in the process. As I mentioned, today, lore suggests that her apparition can still be seen wandering about the Cavalier in search of her beloved pet. But what makes the sad story even more memorable is that the ghost of that cat might also be hanging around. Some guests have reportedly heard the disembodied sounds of the feline, claiming to hear what sounds like meowing and scratching at doors, a claim that recently became even more eerie as a mysterious set of paw prints have appeared on the back staircase. Now, y'all, unfortunately, I've absolutely no idea if any documentary evidence exists to support this claim that a young girl drowned in the Cavalier Hotel's pool. I wish I did, don't get me wrong, but after searching newspaper databases and obituary archives, I wasn't even able to find a name suggesting who the little girl was. So I'm not sure how much of the legend is based in fact. However, true or not, this ghostly tale has become so intertwined with the history of the property that today, visitors to the bar can order a drink called the Ghost Cat, a cocktail made of 4 Roses bourbon, cream, chocolate bitters, vanilla, and grated nutmeg. So, as you can see, the Cavalier Hotel's legacy as being haunted is in fact as noteworthy as its reputation for luxury. Of all the purported hauntings on the property, though, there is one that unquestionably overshadows the rest. It is the result of a completely verifiable tragedy shrouded in a mystery that continues to linger as prominently as the spirits believed to remain there. On the morning of June 5th, 1929, tragedy struck at the Cavalier Hotel as visitors and staff witnessed the horrific sight of a man plunging to his death from a 6th-floor window. people rushed to the scene, and to their shock, they found that the individual lying dead on the hotel's concrete patio was Adolph Coors Sr., founder of the Coors brewing empire. The 82-year-old businessman and his wife Louisa had checked into the hotel about a month and a half before with their daughter Augusta and granddaughter Louise. For several years, the beer magnate had been struggling with some health issues, and so, at the suggestion of his doctors, Coors decided to spend some time in more salubrious climates than his home of Colorado. He first traveled out to the West Coast for a time and then south down to the Bahamas and Key West before settling there in Virginia, where he planned to continue recuperating on the warm and sunny beaches of the Atlantic Ocean. Well, according to his wife, this seemed to be working because after arriving at the Cavalier, not only did Coors' health begin to improve, but so did his spirits. He and his family filled their days relaxing by the pool, spending time with each other and enjoying upscale meals in the opulent dining room. The infamously cold and blunt businessman even made a friend there, a blue-collar surfman named John Woodhouse Sparrow. Now, that might seem an awful strange pairing, a multimillionaire and a regular guy, but Sparrow was the caretaker of the Cavalier's stable, and Adolph Coors had a soft spot for horses, so they bonded over their mutual interests. It is said that for the first time in his life, Adolph Coors was not the unpleasant, miserable man that most knew him to be, and it is for that reason that the event which took place on June 5th, 1929, seems all the more tragic. Immediately after folks witnessed the horrific fall, hotel management rushed to find Louisa and tell her what had transpired, and there's conflicting reports as to what exactly happened. Some say that Louisa was already aware of the tragedy when they found her, that she claimed her husband had risen earlier that morning, made his way over to the window, and the next thing she knew, he either fell or jumped. However, others say that she had no idea and that she and Coors were having lunch with their daughter and grandkid when he very mundanely excused himself from the table and returned to their room on the 6th floor, never to be seen again. So, what happened? Had Adolph Coors fallen from his 6th-floor suite window by accident, or had he taken his life into his own hands and jumped? Or maybe, just maybe, his death was the result of something more nefarious. After all, there were rumors that the authorities discovered the window he jumped from was locked from the inside. Whatever the case may be, though, Coroner R.W. Woodhouse of Princess Anne County didn't feel it was necessary to dig too deep, as after talking with Mrs. Coors and examining her husband's body, he concluded that, quote, an inquest was unnecessary. So there was no autopsy, no further investigation, and Adolph Coors was sent back home to Denver for burial. The famed beer maker's death was deemed to be nothing more than the result of the injuries he sustained from that treacherous fall. There were no mentions of suicide or murder on any official paperwork. However, as I alluded, that has not stopped folks from wondering if there might be something deeper here. A mystery that just might have caused Adolph Coors' spirit to remain right there within the walls of the Cavalier Hotel for what is now almost 100 years. The man behind the Coors brewing empire was born in Prussia on February 4th, 1847. But it wasn't until 1868 when the future millionaire made his way to the United States aboard a transport ship bound for Baltimore, a ship that he illegally stowed away on in an attempt to evade the military draft. Coors had no money and didn't even know English when he arrived, so he relied on a skill that he had cultivated as a young man to make his way in his new home country: beer making. After apprenticing with master brewers for years in his homeland, Coors was able to find work in a Chicago brewery, and after several years of saving and likely learning English, he decided to set his sights further west and headed to Colorado to carve out a path of his own. It was then, in 1873, that focused young man partnered with Jacob Schuler, a local confectionery shop owner who provided the financial backing for what would become the Coors Brewing Company. Together, they purchased an abandoned tannery on Clear Creek in Golden, Colorado, and within a year they had transformed the dilapidated building into a thriving brewery, producing 800 gallons of beer daily. The product quickly gained a reputation for its crisp clearness and consistent quality thanks to Coors' use of the pristine Rocky Mountain spring water of Clear Creek. But the brewery's success wasn't just about the beer. It was also a testament to Adolph Coors' business acumen. As I said, Coors was very focused, and in the early years, he didn't take home pay and instead chose to reinvest his profits into the brewery, prioritizing technological advancements and hiring skilled German immigrants for key roles, and he paid them well for the time, creating a loyal and efficient workforce. By 1890, Adolph Coors was a millionaire, and his beer had earned medals at prestigious events like the Chicago World's Fair. However, the same relentless focus that fueled his business success often alienated those closest to him. In 1879, Coors married Louisa Weber, a kind, gentle woman, and the pair had 6 children, but this didn't really change the brewer. He remained cold and removed, often described as unbearably quiet, not to mention quite demanding. By all accounts, his children did not enjoy his company, and who would blame them, as not only were there rumors of corporal punishment in the home, but when 2 of his kids died in infancy, he buried them in unmarked graves. Doesn't really seem like the sentimental type, now does he? Well, Coors' biographer described the man the best as simply, quote, just a cold, taciturn, deeply unpleasant, deeply unhappy guy. Now, while this cold demeanor may have strained Coors' personal relationships, it was undeniably integral to his professional resilience. As the temperance movement gained traction in the early 20th century, threatening to dismantle the empire he had built, Coors' unyielding determination ensured the survival and growth of his brewing legacy. When Prohibition took effect in 1920, outlawing the production and sale of alcoholic beverages, Adolph Coors faced the greatest challenge of his career. But Coors' resourcefulness and shrewdness saw it coming years before, and he began diversifying the company's offerings as early as the 1910s, buying real estate and manufacturing non-alcoholic products, most notably pottery, ceramics, and porcelain made from the clay deposits near Golden. The brewery also began producing malted milk, a high-protein product popular in the food and pharmaceutical industries at the time. This became a staple in malt shops and soda fountains nationwide, ensuring steady revenue during the dry years, not only keeping the company afloat, but also allowing it to maintain its workforce and infrastructure. Adolph Coors had a lot to be proud of, and by the mid-20s, after all of that work, he passed the reins of his company down to his son. For many, this might seem like a victory, a time to retire and enjoy the spoils of a lifetime of building. However, you heard what folks said about the kind of man that Coors was, right? And chances are he really struggled to let go. Which is why I said earlier that it seems so tragic that he died when he did, after seeming to actually find peace out on Virginia Beach. So, again, what happened at the Cavalier Hotel on June 5th, 1929? Had the successful businessman accidentally fallen from his sixth-floor window, as most of the newspapers and reports seemed to suggest, or had he jumped due to a depression that stemmed from his inability to brew beer and partake in the craft that he had so passionately given his life? Or maybe, like I said, it was something else. Author Nancy E. Shepard poses this question in her book Hampton Roads, Murder and Mayhem very succinctly. Why would a man who was so focused on not only the growth of his business, but also the diversity of it, take his own life?
Some implied that Adolph hadn't accidentally fallen or committed suicide. Instead, something far more sinister happened. He was pushed to his death. As reported by his family, Adolph had a difficult personality and was nearly unbearable to be around, let alone love. He maintained a strong hand and steady control over every aspect of his life, and as much as no one wanted to admit it, maybe someone in his life couldn't take the burden of his standards any longer.
On the other hand, Dan Baum dismissed this type of speculation in his book Citizen Coors, asserting rather abrasively in an interview with Coastal Virginia magazine that there wasn't anything nefarious going on here. Baum truly believed that the beer magnate's death was just a simple case of suicide.
It was probably a combination of not being able to make beer and being a miserable son of a bitch, which he was. It was just cold and unpleasant, and so was his son and grandson. I can't remember what it was that made me write it that way, but I came to be pretty convinced that it was, in fact, suicide.
Of course, none of this has stopped the speculation from continuing today, especially since folks visiting the Cavalier Hotel believe that the sixth floor is one of the most haunted places on the property, and the apparition of Adolph Coors, the most widely reported spirit to be seen there, suggesting that maybe he is still there in order to reveal the true cause of his death. Local author and proprietor of the Virginia Beach Ghost Walk, Al Chuning, told the tale of one particularly exceptional encounter with Coors' apparition in his book, Haunted Virginia Beach, chronicling a guest's claim that they actually captured evidence of the spirit.
A couple I spoke with told me of attending the wedding of their niece at the Cavalier back in the early 1970s. A professional photographed the wedding party in the hotel's lobby while several relatives took snapshots with their own cameras. The woman said that in some of her developed photos, there was a faint, misty image of what appeared to be a man. She dismissed it as being the fault of her cheap camera and didn't think of it again until she attended another family function a few years later. As the photo albums were being passed around, she noticed similar flaws in other people's pictures. Everyone ultimately agreed the image did look like a man, but no one could identify who it was. When I showed this woman a photo of Adolph Coors, she gasped and said she thought it was the ghostly man in the wedding pictures.
While Adolph Coors' apparition might be one of the most infamous at the Cavalier, as I mentioned earlier, he, the little girl from the pool, and the ghost cat are far from the only ones believed to linger there. After all, the Cavalier Hotel has been around for almost a century, and those early years of extravagance and opulence didn't last for long. When World War II broke out, the United States Navy took over the building and turned this once exquisite icon of the Roaring Twenties into a site for radar training, cramming so many sailors onto the property that even the stables were used as living quarters. Well, apparently, at least one of those men has stuck around because numerous guests have described encountering a man in an antiquated military uniform, warning them not to go upstairs because, quote, there are so many bodies up there. Some hotel lore suggests that this warning comes from the fact that during the war, a disaster happened nearby, resulting in numerous injured men being brought into the hotel. Yet, this seems to be just that, ghost lore, as there's not anything to support the claim that the hotel was some type of makeshift hospital or there really was this tragedy suggested here. As for that local historian, Al Chuning, he seems to think this particular apparition might be due to something of a very, very different nature.
It could be the spirit of a sailor who, while attending radar training school at the Cavalier in 1944, met the woman who would become his wife. The couple had planned to spend their 47th wedding anniversary at the hotel where they met, but he died just 3 months before the event in 1991. The man's widow presented the hotel management with the flag that draped her husband's casket, and it was proudly flown from atop the hotel. Could it be that his spirit came back looking for his true love?
After the war, the Cavalier Resort did return to civilian use, but the years had begun taking its toll on the property, and the hotel was never the same again. Over the next few decades, it was used as a private club, and then in 1973, a modern 11-story tall sister hotel opened closer to the beach, overlooking the ocean, and the historic brick building was closed for several years. Fortunately, it was spared the wrecking ball and ended up being used seasonally for several decades later, eventually earning a spot on the National Register of Historic Places. Then, in 2012, a new set of owners took possession of the property, and not long after, renovation began, and this resulted in the exquisite resort that stands there today on the north end of the oceanfront district. A beautiful and historic icon of Virginia Beach's legacy. As for the spirits who inhabit it, well, they apparently haven't left either, as to this day, visitors and staff alike have continued to report sightings and encounters with both apparitions and disembodied sounds, reminders that even the most luxurious places can be as haunted as those existing in the shadows. My name is Brandon Scheck-Snyder, and you are listening to Southern Gothic. Southern Gothic is an independent podcast produced by Southern Gothic Media and made possible by the support of listeners like you. If you enjoyed the show, please consider becoming a Patreon supporter, signing up for our premium subscriptions on Apple Podcasts, or leaving us a 5-star review. We'd really appreciate it. But y'all, most of all, thanks for listening.
Lucky Little Shacks.